Well, I think we had a design to play the ad, but I'm not sure that that's working. So, Mary, why don't you go ahead and get us started here?
I'll just get you started.
Yep.
Okay. Christian, I hope that's okay. I hope it doesn't. Okay. Good afternoon and welcome to our virtual meet and greet today with congressional candidate Roger Polack and our special guest, Democratic Party of Wisconsin Chair Ben Wikler. My name is Mary Jonker and I am the chair of Wisconsin's 1st Congressional District Democrats. The 1st Congressional District Democrats' purpose is to elect a Democratic representative to Congress and includes either all or part of 6 counties: Kenosha, Milwaukee, Racine, Rock, Walworth, and Waukesha. In order for you to know what is happening in the 1st Congressional District and keep up with election information, like us on our Facebook page, Wisconsin 1st Congressional District. The election is just over 3 weeks away on November 3rd, and if you haven't requested an absentee ballot yet, you can go to myvote.wi.gov to request a ballot for the November election. The first day that municipal clerks may offer in-person absentee voting in their office or a satellite location is October 20th. Start dates and office hours vary by municipality. You can go to myvote.wi.gov to find your municipal clerk's office contact. Now, it's my pleasure to welcome our special guest, Democratic Party of Wisconsin Chair Ben Wikler, who has generously agreed to join us today for this event. Chair Wikler, welcome.
Thank you so much. Whoop. I think I've got an echo, so there we go. Thank you so much, Mary, and thanks for all that you do for the Democratic Party of Wisconsin and to fight for the fighting first. Thank you, Roger, for inviting me as a guest on today's town hall. I'm going to share for a few minutes an outline of what the race looks like here in Wisconsin, why the 1st Congressional District is so critical to everything we have on the line across the state, which affects the country and the world. And then I have the honor of introducing Roger. So here we are, 23 days out in a state that both sides acknowledge is the most critical, perhaps the single most critical state in this entire election. The Trump campaign said last year, either we win Wisconsin and win the election, or we lose Wisconsin and lose the election. And this summer, when Trump was in Wisconsin, he said, if we lose Wisconsin, we've got problems. We are trying to create some good kind of problems for Donald Trump in Wisconsin. And this is a state that right now and continuously has been moving towards Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. They are ahead here as we go into the home stretch. But we also know that Wisconsin is a state that can come down to a knife's edge. 3 of the last 5 presidential elections have come down to under 1 percentage point in our state. In 2016, Hillary Clinton was 6.5 points ahead in Wisconsin on election day in the polling average. Right now, Joe Biden's 7.3 percentage points ahead here. If the error is the same, then we will win by 0.1 percentage points, which, a win is a win, but I'd rather win by a lot more than that. And that's why a congressional district like the 1st becomes incredibly important for the presidential race, as well as important for the fate of what happens in Congress and the representation that the citizens of the 1st get. Our ability to find, mobilize, persuade, and turn out voters in the 1st Congressional District will affect this presidential election and thus the future of the entire world. So what's it going to take in the home stretch? The first thing to know is that Wisconsin is leading the country on absentee ballot returns. Already, enough absentee ballots have been sent back in that they represent more than 1/5 of the total number of votes cast in Wisconsin in 2016. We have half of all the absentee ballots that have been requested have already been sent back. So this is critical because getting those votes in early allows organizers, the campaign, to focus on a smaller number of voters for the final stretch. If you have an absentee ballot, mail it in now, hand drop it off now, and the Democratic Party of Wisconsin's coordinated campaign can help you figure out exactly how to do that. You can find out more at vote.wisdems.org. On the 20th, actually, let me back up. Normally, about an eighth of Wisconsinites do same-day registration. They register and they vote on the same day. And that option is alive and well this year, but we have a COVID spike that is raging out of control. So if you're a voter who would prefer to register online rather than go into the polling places, you've got to know the deadline is the 14th of October. That is 3 days away. You can go to myvote.wi.gov and you can register to vote online now. The minute you've registered to vote, once that goes through, you can then request your absentee ballot. That deadline, there's a court case pending. We've been fighting to try to get it extended, but don't count on any extensions. We learned that this spring. You've got to assume the worst case scenario, and the worst case scenario is you've got 3 days left. So step one, register to vote, get an absentee ballot. If you would rather go and vote early in person, we have in every part of the state 2 weeks of early in-person voting starting on October 20th. So that is 9 days from now. That's the next wave of votes that are going to come in. You can early vote in person and same day register when you do it for those 2 weeks. And then you get to the final stretch, November 3rd. If you haven't voted yet, that is your time. And we've got to get every voter to the polls. Now, this spring, we experienced a crush of absentee ballots and poll locations closing because of coronavirus and poll workers dropping out. We've actually been organizing to recruit poll workers, especially younger poll workers who are less under threat from coronavirus, and now have so many that polling places should be open across the state. But the earlier you vote, the more you make sure that you're not adding it to any lines on election day. But if you do vote on election day, those votes are going to be tallied right away and revealed that night. In different parts of the state, the rules around the counting of absentee ballots work differently. The one constant is that they can be counted starting 7 a.m. on election day. Some places have them in a central count facility where they'll all be counted in the same place and revealed at once. Some places they're counted at the precinct level. But however it works, those absentee ballots and the regularly cast ballots and the early vote absentee ballots, they'll all be counted. They will count. As voters, our power as voters will determine the outcome of this election. And don't let anyone, and I'm talking specifically about Donald Trump here, tell you otherwise. So we're in the home stretch. We have a lot of work to do. And the thing that makes me so excited about this last period is the incredible people who are running for office in every corner of our state. And I want to share a tremendous level of excitement about our candidate here in the 1st Congressional District. Now, this used to be Paul Ryan's district. It is a district that sent someone to Congress who did some pretty bad things. Brian Stile came in and just made it worse. He is a bad representative for this district. But we've got a candidate who grew up in Racine in a family that had its share of economic challenges, who understands what it's like when the system is not working out for working families in our state. And he worked through that, and he became a national security scholar and devoted himself to making the world a better place for everyone. As a civilian intelligence officer, he was deployed to Afghanistan. He dealt with the Taliban. He worked, he came back, went to law school, worked on the Iran nuclear deal to control the spread of nuclear weapons, made a substantial change on the international scene, and then moved home to Racine, and is now running to represent the people of Racine for families just like his, and for all families, to make sure people have healthcare, that they have great jobs, that they have the dignity that every person deserves. He is somebody who has seen how bad things can get, and who has seen and demonstrated that even in the face of really, really tough circumstances, we can make things better. And he's the right person to represent the 1st Congressional District of Wisconsin. So with all that, I am thrilled to introduce and to turn the virtual microphone over to Roger Polack. Over to you, Roger.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you so much. I appreciate that introduction. Very, very kind introduction. Thanks for all the insight on how voting is working this time around, and completely echo everything that Ben said. It's important to make a plan and execute on that by November 3rd. And one thing to add about the importance of this congressional district is my campaign ran a poll showing that Biden and Trump are tied in this district. It's a district that Donald Trump won by 30,000 votes in 2016, winning the state of Wisconsin by only 22,000 and change. And so I don't think it's a stretch to say that as this district goes, so goes the state of Wisconsin. And you heard Ben say that as the state of Wisconsin goes, very likely so goes the country. So we are I think, at the tip of the spear in Wisconsin's 1st congressional district, and that's a lot of pressure, I think, on the voters here to take this seriously and get out and vote, not only for me, everyone down the ticket, but Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And so just want to impress upon everyone that we're in a critical district for the entire country. Let me add on to what Ben said about me, and thank you all for attending this, and thank you to Mary and the CD1 board for hosting another one of these community and town halls. I wanted to tell you, in addition to my background, why I'm running for this seat. And it really comes down to the fact that there is a lack of leadership in this country and in this district. As Ben said, I grew up in a family that struggled to make ends meet. I remember being a kid at night watching my mom sat at the table after working a double shift and late at night crunching the numbers and figuring out how to pay rent, how to pay for my dad's medical bills, and how to keep our family afloat. And too many politicians in this country have no idea what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck, or frankly care about people who are living paycheck to paycheck. And I obviously do know what that's like. And while politicians have no problem cutting large checks for corporations to bail them out, individuals are often have the door shut on them, and they're unable to make ends meet. And we're seeing that happen right now in the midst of this pandemic, with Brian Style voting against the HEROES Act #2 and failing to stand up and say that, yes, I'm gonna represent individuals as well as corporations and make sure that everyone has what they need in this trying time. And I believe that now more than ever, everyone in our country needs to stand up and do what they can to make our country a better place for everyone. And for me, that meant working personally to kick corporate special interests out of our congressional seat and defeat a politician who's been funded to the tune in this election by over $500,000 from corporate PACs and special interest groups, someone who has no plan on healthcare, someone who supports funding cuts to public education, has shown over and over again that he does not take this virus seriously. And I think this is a point worth hammering home, that $200,000 of the $500,000 that he's taken comes from banks and insurance companies that he has direct oversight over. So he is really part of the problem in Washington of this entrenched corruption that exists in our country. And as Ben mentioned, that I served our country, and I'm proud to have tackled some of our most pressing foreign policy issues. I served under both Republican and Democratic presidents. I went into service under President George W. Bush and worked as a civilian intelligence analyst. Right after 9/11, I was part of a unit that was stood up shortly after the attacks that focused on the funding of terrorism. And that was a major gap in our country's intelligence. And I joined this group looking at the funding the terrorist organizations in Asia, and then deployed to Afghanistan for 2 years as first an analyst and then deputy director of an organization that focused on stopping funding to the Taliban. And in that capacity, I worked with soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines, with federal law enforcement officials on investigations to keep our country safe. And so because of my humble beginnings, I also know what it's like for the importance of education in someone's life to transform a life. And I know firsthand, as Ben mentioned, and as I said, that what it's like to grow up, frankly, poor, and I remember standing in line with my mom as a kid, waiting for powdered milk and government cheese right in downtown Racine. And I think what I'm going to be trying to work for is to make sure that less kids, in our community and around the country have those memories. And I am a public school kid. I'm a proud graduate of the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And, it's important to me that we take education seriously. And like a lot of Americans, I'm still paying off my college loans. And so, education and making sure that my story is not a fluke is a huge priority for me. And I want to focus on that in Congress. And I, look forward to a great conversation here with questions back and forth between me, Mary, and Ben. And Mary, why don't I throw it over to you to kick us off in the town hall portion?
Thank you, Roger. We'll begin in a few moments with our question and answer portion. If you would like to ask a question, please enter it in the chat. Our candidate needs your support, both in volunteer time and donations, for whatever you are able to do to help with this election in November and turn Wisconsin blue. The link for Roger's website will be scrolling continuously at the bottom of our screen throughout our presentation. So we'll start with our first question to Roger. Roger, across our country, more than 210,000 Americans have died and more than 7 million infected by COVID-19. What specific steps do you think need to be taken to prevent further deaths and suffering as the pandemic continues? And what strategies do you recommend for schools and businesses to open safely? And what do you think needs to be done to ensure citizens can vote safely during this
Great
pandemic?
question, Mary. And, I'd say we need to listen to scientists and medical professionals and listen to our governor, who has, put in place a mask mandate and has, put a cap on capacity or people's ability to attend gatherings, and businesses. And that's for everyone's well-being. And it's, including Brian Stile, the incumbent here, has flaunted those. He's regularly out. All you have to do is look at his Twitter account, and he's out and about meeting with individuals without masks on, and he himself and the people he's meeting with putting people at risk. And we have also Stile saying that Donald Trump has taken decisive action to prevent the spread of, literally, quote unquote, decisive action to prevent the spread of coronavirus in this country. And that's, a lot of people on this town hall, I'm sure, realize that is just an untruth. From the beginning, Donald Trump lied to the American people, and he told a journalist, Bob Woodward, the truth, but couldn't tell the American people the truth. And that's a disgusting fact. And if individuals, I have a family friend of mine was one of the first people to die in Racine, and I believe that person would still be around if the truth was known. And so it's, everyone knows someone who's either been ill or died because of the coronavirus, and I think that lies straight at the feet of the President of the United States. And Brian Stile, for his own actions, failed to vote in favor of the Family First Coronavirus Relief Act, not acknowledging that people are hurting and that people needed at the time PPE. And so I believe, to directly address the question, we need to focus on, one, listening to scientists and medical professionals, two, social distancing, wearing masks, and then when a vaccine is found and put in place, that we have a system in place to deliver that vaccine. And I believe the same testing facilities, would be great ways to deliver the vaccine to individuals and make sure that the vaccines are free of charge, and that there's ample supply getting out to everyone. As far as schools go, the pressure that the president put on schools to open or face not receiving federal financial aid was abhorrent, and I think is indicative of the way that he has governed this country by pressure. And I think it's very important that we let local officials determine what is best for them. I think the way that Racine handled it is a model by saying, we're going to have the first quarter of the school year virtual, and we're going to assess from there. But every local district is handling it differently, and I think we need to respect the local authorities on this, but making sure that teachers are safe and that they feel like they have what they need to safely teach. And so, as far as what citizens need to vote safely, Ben went through that, I think, in great detail. Go to myvote.wi.gov. We're getting late in the time of registering online, but 2 weeks prior to the election, there's early in-person voting, which will have less individuals to come in contact with than on election day. and get your absentee ballot. But I think above all, you need to make a plan and execute on that.
Here in Wisconsin, we have escalating cases and deaths each day, resulting in a tragic impact on all our lives. What do you think needs to be done to ensure citizens' safety in Wisconsin, not only during the elections, but after the election?
I think this one's for me, Mary. And thank you for that important and really tragic question. We have an uncontrolled coronavirus spike in our state. And the reason for it is twofold. First, we have a president of the United States who has systematically downplayed this crisis and refused to act, who is, as Roger was saying, who's deliberately misled the public. And second, we have a disastrously irresponsible and morally bankrupt state Republican Party and Republican Legislative Caucus that has taken its cues from Donald Trump and deliberately sabotaged our state's response to this pandemic. They sued to the Supreme Court to end our stay-at-home order and remove powers from our Department of Health Services. They're in court right now trying to strike down our mask mandate in our state. They went to court and got the power to set emergency health measures, moved essentially from the Department of Health Services to our state legislature, and then they did nothing. For more than 175 days, they've passed 0 bills. And what that means is that right now, as the case counts rise, they are essentially holding the power to do something about it and refusing to act. So we need a new president who will take this seriously and provide resources and support and guidance to states that they can actually trust and make use of. We need new strength in Congress. We need to elect Roger Polack in the first. We need to elect the Democratic U.S. Senate and expand the majority in the House so that we can pass a relief bill of the magnitude that our country actually needs, which Republicans have refused to do for months and months and months. And here in our state, we need to make sure that Republicans don't have the power to block action that our governor wants to put in place. There are a number of steps that Roger just elucidated that would reduce case counts and keep us all safe. But the reason why those things are not happening is Republican malfeasance. And we need to change who has power so that folks who listen to scientists and are ready to do the hard things necessary to protect us can get the job done. When we do that, we'll be able to reopen our economy safely, send our kids to school safely, and curb this tide of hospitalizations and death that is just washing over our state, even as we speak right now.
Thank you. Roger, the Republicans are in the courts trying to destroy the Affordable Care Act, and they have no plans to replace it. The recent Supreme Court nomination will only add further risk. What is your stand on healthcare as a right in our country?
Thank you, Mary. It's an incredibly important question, and you're right. The ACA is under attack by Republicans, and the real sad part about that is attacking something with no plan to backfill it. Republicans have absolutely no plan on healthcare, and that was shown. Biden squarely asked Donald Trump, "What's your plan?" at the debate. He has no plan on how to move forward. Should it be repealed? But I want to say I absolutely believe that healthcare in our country, around the world, is a human right, and we have the ability to achieve that in the United States of America. And I grew up in a family where paying healthcare costs was a huge stress and source of anxiety in our country. And now more than ever with this pandemic, it's clear that we need to shore up our healthcare system, and we need to ensure that everyone has access to quality, affordable healthcare. And again, back to Brian's style, he's taken money from pharmaceutical companies, health insurance companies, and he's one of the reasons why healthcare costs and drug costs are so high. He voted against a bill that would allow the U.S. government to negotiate with pharmaceutical companies on behalf of Medicare and Medicaid patients. And that's just an example of where this man's priorities are. And I believe that we need to build upon the Affordable Care Act, not replace it. We need to eliminate surprise billing, drive down the cost of prescription drugs, and protect coverage for those with pre-existing conditions. And I believe, I am in the same view as Vice President Joe Biden on this, that I think the public option is the way to achieve that right now.
Thank you. Oops, sorry. Okay. I want to make sure that my mic isn't muted. Chair Wikler, the access to affordable health care is critical in America, as we see, and the issue has only gotten worse during this pandemic. What do you think needs to be done to ensure more Wisconsinites have accessible and affordable health care?
You know, I think there's a fundamental belief that's shared by most Wisconsinites, most Americans, and certainly Democratic candidates and office holders, which is that everyone should have healthcare. Healthcare should be a human right. There are different views about exactly what the destination should look like for a country where everyone has that care. But what's clear is that we shouldn't be going backwards, ripping up the Affordable Care Act. We should be going forwards. And there are some very simple common sense things that we could do right now if Republicans weren't throwing themselves into the way. One is that under federal law, Wisconsin could get billions and billions of dollars to expand Medicaid coverage, which not only would help ensure 82,000 more people than currently have insurance here, it would also reduce the cost of premiums for everybody, because when folks move on to Medicaid, it actually reduces the cost to other health systems as well. So this is a no-brainer. You don't have to change federal law to be able to dramatically expand coverage and reduce costs for everyone in Wisconsin. The governor put it in his budget, and Wisconsin legislative Republicans, the same ones who've done nothing to deal with coronavirus, they ripped it out of the budget and have refused to take this simple step. In every state where it's been a ballot initiative and voters can vote on it, even deep red states, Medicare has been expanded. Medicaid has been expanded. In Wisconsin, Republicans have bottled it up and prevented it from taking place. So that's one thing we should do right now. And then we can look at these bigger ideas. You know, federal action to create a public option would allow so many people another choice and be able to expand coverage dramatically. So I'm really excited about what Roger was just saying about the need to do that. It would have a big impact here in the Badger State too. Across the board, we should be looking at how we get more people coverage so that everyone gets coverage and make the coverage cheaper instead of the Republican theory on this, which is to make it more expensive, to make it harder to get, and to try to fatten the wallets of insurance companies and folks who profit off the system we've got instead of thinking about how to make the system work better for human beings.
Thank you. For anyone who has just joined us, this is Wisconsin's first congressional district meet and greet with Democratic congressional candidate Roger Polack and Democratic Party of Wisconsin Chair Ben Wikler. Our candidate needs your support both in volunteer time and donations for whatever you are able to do to help win this election in November and turn Wisconsin blue. The link for Roger's website is scrolling at the bottom of your screen. So Roger, our Wisconsin economy has been devastated with the pandemic and the tariff wars. Voters are discouraged and feel that politicians are not helping them. What specific policies would you support to help businesses in Wisconsin that have been adversely affected by the pandemic and consequent shutdowns? What can be accomplished at both the national and state level? Help the millions who have lost their jobs and are struggling to put food on their tables, pay their bills, or just survive during this pandemic?
Yeah, well, I think, we've talked about it a bit, but it's important to remember why this is happening in the first place. President Trump style and his Republican enablers didn't move fast enough to contain the virus through testing, contract tracing, and equipping hospitals with the tools that they need. They brushed it off for months and called it a hoax, while the economy ground to a halt. And in the span of 6 months, we've seen 2 years of job gain wiped out. In May, there was 15% unemployment. And at the same time, we've got Republicans working to take healthcare away from, over 200,000 people in Wisconsin. We're in the largest economic and public health crisis, and certainly in my lifetime, and I'm sure most people's lifetime. And we need to have the tools in place. And there's legislation right now that's passed the House. And again, Brian Stile voted against an initiative that would allow Wisconsin. Federal government would give Wisconsin money to provide individuals via unemployment insurance, additional stipends, $600 per week additional. And when asked, why he didn't vote for it, his response was that it was quote unquote unfair, that it would be unfair to provide those benefits to individuals who are out of work and potentially have them making more money while at home than they would at work. And to that I say, what's unfair is that over 200,000 Americans are dead, and that millions of people have been infected by this virus. We don't know the long-term impacts of that, and that's what's unfair. And it's unfair that people are out of work, and that is Donald Trump's fault. I believe that to my core, and then we need to make sure that people have the resources that they need to get through this. I think about my own family. If this had happened while I was a kid, my mom worked retail, worked 3 jobs at the same time, and we would be completely devastated as a family. I don't know how we would have been able to pay rent, pay for groceries, and that would have been life-altering for us. And an extra $600 a week would completely have staved off eviction, and that will do that for individuals right now. I don't know who in their right mind thinks that someone's going to get rich off of $600 a week. That money is going to go back into our economy to make sure that our economy doesn't tank. People are going to buy groceries, gas, pay their rent with that $600 a week. So that's on the individual and family level. As far as work, and we also need to work to prop up small businesses during this time. The fact that small businesses had to compete with large corporations for the PPP loans, I think was not the way it should have been done. And moving forward, we need to have a bill in place where small businesses have their own line to go to for support, and that's hugely important for me.
Thank you. Chair Wikler, is there anything you'd like to add to Roger's response? Okay. We need to unmute Chair Wikler. You're mute. Okay, There you go.
Thank you. I just wanted to applaud and amplify and echo what Roger just said. This is, it's time for a change, and we need to do everything we can, and the next 23 days will determine what kind of change we can create. And now you're muted.
Okay, there. There's a question from our audience. Chair Wikler, I'm going to have you answer this because I think you probably have the best way people could do this. What are the ways for folks to get out the vote when door knocking has become less than an option?
So the number one thing that I would encourage everyone to do is get on the phone. We're doing virtual phone banks every weekend. They're happening today. I will put a link into the, or I'm not sure if I can put a link into the thing. So I will say, if you go to wisdems.org, talk-to-voters, or just go to wisdems.org/volunteer. You can sign up and become a volunteer for the Democratic Party of Wisconsin coordinated campaign. It's the whole Biden team. Or if you go to mobilize.us, that might be the simplest thing. Mobilize.us, you'll wind up on a page that shows you all the local opportunities to join virtual events. Virtual phone banking, you actually call voters, and you might be persuading them to vote for Biden, Harris, Polack, and for state legislative candidates. You might be calling people who are almost certainly Democrats who have absentee ballots that they haven't returned. We're now doing phone banking to people who sent in an absentee ballot, but it has some kind of problem. And now they can cure that ballot by going in and getting a witness signature on it. And the last thing is recruiting to get more poll workers and poll observers so that we can make sure that the vote is conducted in a fair and secure way, and make sure that precincts are open. So those are all things that you can do by phone. Here we go. To volunteer, go to wisdems.org/talk-to-voters. So number one is call. Number two, folks can donate. Donate to Roger Pollack's campaign. Let's get the funds in the door so that the campaign can communicate with voters about their choice in this election. That makes a critical difference. We have a huge volunteer operation going on around sending text messages, but I have to tell you, so many people want to text that right now we have as many volunteers as we can handle on that front. And I'm grateful to everyone who's doing that work. Number one thing is doing those virtual phone bank shifts. They are making a huge difference. It's why Wisconsin's #1 in the country for absentee ballot returns right now, because people are talking to voters, and we've got to keep both feet on the gas.
Yes, there's so much that people can do. Also, if none of the ways that the chair has told you that you're finding you want to do, you could go to your local county party, and they'll be able to tell you what needs to be done for phone calling. Many of the candidates in our first congressional district are doing lit drops where you don't need to be in contact with any individual. So it's been nice weather, so it's been good to get out and do that. So there's a lot to happen, and if all else fails, go to our Facebook page, ask a question, we'll get back to you. Our Facebook page is Wisconsin 1st Congressional District. So there's a lot you could do.
That's a great suggestion. County parties all over the state are doing creative things that it is worth getting engaged in.
Well, Chair Wikler, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to join us today. Would you like to say a few words before you leave?
I will close with this. We have 23 days left, and we're in a moment in time, unlike any other in our lifetimes, when the work that we do for this final period of this election will shape human history. It'll have an effect on every human life that will ever be lived. Most people in the country, most people in the world do not have the chance that we have. In Wisconsin, our votes could be so pivotal in determining the outcome of the presidential election, what happens in Congress, what happens in our state legislature. It's hard to think of a time when the people of one state could have such a dramatic impact on the entire world. And that's a gift. It can feel like pressure. I want to encourage you to think of it as a superpower. If you can figure out what you can reschedule, what you can delay, maybe you take some vacation days and spend your time calling voters, talking to voters, doing those lit drops, doing everything that you can to make a difference in this election, you'll never regret it. If something goes wrong, you might wake up with regrets after this election if you don't do all you can during this time. But by working all together, by pouring ourselves in to making every use of every minute that we possibly can, we're going to set the stage for a better, fairer, more just, more free country. What a gift it is to be able to do that. And I want to ask everyone who's watching right now to make a personal commitment to leaving it all on the field. Let's go all in and let's go win this election.
Absolutely. Ben,
thank you, Chair Wikler, for joining us today and taking your time to do this.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your support to the campaign and for joining today, and look forward to staying in touch the last few weeks here.
Let's go for it. Thank you so much for running.
Yes,
That's an important thing. All right.
Roger, we do have a few questions here that we could ask you if you have a few minutes.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of our audience members is asking, are there plans for you to debate Brian Style?
Yes, there are. October 16th is the first debate that is, 5 days away. That's going to be hosted by WCLO in Janesville, and also live stream to Facebook. And so, I'm looking forward to that. I think Brian Styles got a lot to answer for, and it'll be early in the morning, and we'll have details up for that on our Facebook and Twitter page very soon.
What can be done about Foxconn?
Yeah, Foxconn, that is a story where Donald Trump had called that program the eighth wonder of the world. There was a promise of 13,000 jobs to this district, which would have made it the largest employer by a long shot. And we've seen that not come to fruition. My understanding is that the jobs currently are about 10% of that level. I want that to succeed. And, I will be doing whatever I can at the federal level. The agreement is made up between Foxconn and the state. And, I will use influence there to try to make it move forward as best as possible for Wisconsin workers. But I think, you know, it's a shame the way that it has turned out, and you know, we've got a great governor in Governor Evers, and I believe that, you know, I'm hopeful. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I'm hopeful that we're going to be able to increase the number of jobs there over time. But the way that the agreement was written, totally advantageous for Foxconn, and the number of jobs, again, is about 10% of what was promised and believed. So it feels like there was a substantial bait and switch there. But in Congress, you know, I'll be working hard to do what I can to make sure that that comes to fruition, because I want it to succeed. I think we need more jobs in southeastern Wisconsin, and jobs are a huge platform of mine. It's one of my top priorities, is increasing the number of jobs in southeastern Wisconsin. And you know, when I was a kid, my dad worked at J.I. Case on the line making tractors, and at that time, J.I. Case employed over 4,000 individuals, one of the largest employers in the entire district. It's down to 10% of that today. There's 400 employers, right, or 400 jobs from Case in Racine. And that story has been repeated throughout the district. GM obviously closing in Janesville, and manufacturers that are here, just like J.I. Case, reducing the number of employees that they have. And so I believe that we need a strong infrastructure package at the federal level to get more union-paying jobs here in Wisconsin, and family-supporting jobs, and that also help push our economy into the 21st century while working to help our climate.
Okay, we have another question from one of our audience members. Will you commit to saving Social Security?
I absolutely will do that. You know, I mentioned my dad had mental health problems as a kid, and you know, our family had Social Security disability support for that, and you know, my family members right now who are on Social Security, and it's important to me. It's important to individuals throughout the country that be saved. And there's, you know, these hints and things that Donald Trump says that I think put it in danger, and the Republican Party will certainly go along with him on that. We need to make sure that we are in a position to ensure that Social Security exists for generations in the future. And so I think we need to make sure that individuals keep their hands off of it. Absolutely.
And making this event a good success. In conclusion, to everyone who has joined us, get involved by volunteering and donating what you can to help our candidate. This is an election that we simply cannot just vote. We need to get out and do some work. The link for Roger's website is scrolling at the bottom of our screen. And there's the website for the Wisconsin Dems that you could also go to volunteer and I'm sure to donate. So thank you everyone who has joined us today. And Roger, again, thank you for joining us and taking your time.
Thank you, Mary, and everyone for hosting this once again. Thank you again to Ben Wikler for participating. It's great to have him on. And thanks to all those who sent in comments. And you know, I'm going to be fighting these next 23 days to make sure that we win this district and we have representation for the first time in well over 20 years that finally looks out for the needs of everyday individuals. I just saw a comment, how can we get signs? Go to your local party office. We've given signs to all of the 6 party offices that comprise the 1st Congressional District. So they will have my signs. And yeah, that's great that you want that. And thanks for everyone who is working hard to make sure that we get this done. Thank you so much.
Joined us today.